Going on, Lapeef family? What's going on? Glad you guys were able to tune in today. Today is going to be about Mr. Lee. He's going to be bringing part two of his talk. He's going to be talking about self control, boundaries, and a life code. Looking forward to it, man. We received such a positive response when he was up here last Saturday. A lot of people hit me in the DMs and emails. Just a bunch of love for Mr. Lee. I've actually been speaking with him, and when I tell you he is preparing for another great show, he has definitely been preparing. I look forward to this conversation. Let's bring up Mr. Lee. What's going on? How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And yourself?
Man, I'm doing phenomenal, man. I know you was in the background listening, but the people loved you, man. They loved you. A lot of jewels, a lot of game that was dropped last Saturday, man. And we're looking forward to it, man. Can you just give us a little brief description as far as what you're going to be diving in today?
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for your support and your kind words, for welcoming me onto this Black Manosphere and being able to contribute some of my thoughts and my ideas to lend a hand to the conversation. Today what I really want to talk about is how Black men could become a leader in 2022 and going forward for our community and what that will entail. Obviously, self control is something that I'm going to talk about briefly, boundaries and life code. We can make a change in our own life, and to do that, we need to become better. Those are things that we have control in. We can begin to build a new Black community where Black men are the rulers of the community and not the women. The Black community today has gone through many different changes, and from what many of us men have observed, it may be beyond repair. And if any of you have background in construction or building, you know that sometimes a building you can't go in and renovate it. You just have to knock it down to the ground and start over with a new foundation. And I think the Black men in the manosphere can become the new lighthouse, a beacon, a place where we can begin to rebuild a new Black community. More importantly, I think we also have to look at how we're going to take power in America to secure and define our own destiny as we go forward. So these are the things that I would like to weave into the discussion today, and we can talk about it.
Man, there you have it, man. I was contemplating should I get my pad out right now because I thought you was gonna dive right into it. I said, "Damn, I'm gonna dip out on this one," but I look forward to it, Mr. Lee. Sage
Okay.
talk with Mr. Lee is what it is, man. He likes to be called Lee. I gotta try to work that into becoming a norm. So my apologies, man. Well, if I'll do, man, I'm gonna let you get to your bag. Make sure you guys get them likes up. Also, you make sure you subscribe to the channel. Green Gang, I see you in the house. Make sure you guys hit that join button if you want to become a member. All right, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy afternoon to tune in to Sage Talk. And this is a continuation of our Leaders Lead series. And one of the things I want to discuss is there are three things: living a life without boundaries. I know when I said boundaries before, many people thought it was restrictive. What I'm talking about is living a life without boundaries. And there are three things that I called out where I feel can inhibit a Black man from being able to living a life without boundaries. And the first thing I would say is having a criminal background affects your freedom. Once you're freed into the society, your opportunities are restricted. The things and places where you can go are restricted. Maybe not openly restricted by a sign, but restricted that people will not give you opportunities. The second thing I would say that could limit one's ability to live a life without boundaries is living a life without principles. A man without principles can never be trusted. A man without principles can be bought. And any man that can be bought will find himself from time to time put off to the side by other men that have high ethics, particularly in business, and a man of a bad reputation. Today, we live in a world where between Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube, of course, it's easy for a person's name to be out in the world and for you to build a reputation about who you are. But it's easier for you to sully or dirty that reputation. And once your reputation and your name has been sullied, there are limits on your life as to how you can progress and live a life without boundaries. So that's something I would like, brothers who want to really be able to live at their fullest to consider. How can I improve the quality of life that I have? And what are the things I need to take to reshape the person that I am? The second part is living a life by code. I think one of the things that is lacking in our community as Black men is morals and ethics. We don't uphold moral ethics. We allow everyone to live a life so freely that our communities is crumbling not only by the seams, but from the center out. So I think more importantly, Black men who are part of the Black manosphere should consider establishing codes of conduct and codes of life. And today, I would like to make a proposition from today forward to the Black men that's listening on this talk today and that may listen to it as a pre-recording at some point later, to implement this one code of life. What would it be if we was to make a decision today to never sleep with another man's wife? What would that look like? How would that change Black America? Don't care how good she looked, don't care how thick she is, don't care how much she wants to be with you. As long as that woman belongs to another man, you can't touch her. And you make that decision that you will never touch her. If we were to change that one simple behavior in our community, I think a significant amount of violence could be put to the side. We could save a lot of lives. So this is the one code of ethics I would like to bring forth for brothers to consider. Another thing that I hear a lot on YouTube in many discussions is don't judge me. I hear that a lot, both from men and sometimes from women too. I think women may say that more so than men, but nonetheless, we're both guilty of using that phrase. And what I think is that a Black man from the Black manosphere who want to be a leader, a lighthouse of change, a beacon of a new Black America, men with power and authority that can make decisions in their lives and for those around them, that we should judge everything in our life. A Black man should judge all things. He should judge the women in his circle. He should judge his business associates. He should judge the friends that he keeps. But more importantly, a Black man should surround himself with other like-minded men that will judge him, that can hold him accountable, that can keep him from straying from the path in which he have chosen as a man to be a leader, to be a strong Black leader in our community. These are some of the things that we lack. And I think talking about what we fail in or what we have failed in the past, I think we're all very well aware of what those are. Personally, I believe in finding solutions and making changes and doing. My past, I have lived where I did the things in my life that I wanted to do. I didn't sit down and talk about them. And I think it's time we as Black men start to really implement change by the way in which we live, where everyone can see at a glance that we are living the life that we say we want. Being in control of oneself is a masterful skill that I think every Black man should strive to attain. If there are outcomes that you want to see in your life to be successful, whether it be in a relationship, in a marriage, in a family, with money, you have to set controls within your life. And I'm not talking about controls with regard to limitations. I'm talking about controls with regard to behavior. You know, there's an old saying that says, uh, you are what you eat. And I believe that saying may have evolved because of people of old who have observed people who eat things tend to become those things that they eat. They sort of look like it. If you eat healthy, exercise, pray, and train, you will look healthy, you will be healthy, your mind would be healthy, your spirit will be healthy. If you eat things that are not healthy for you, if you don't have discipline, you don't exercise, and you don't take care of yourself and spiritually develop yourself, that also will show. I believe that self control is one of the keys to attaining the outcomes that we desire in life. And self control also will help mitigate the whims of your emotions. Because I find, and especially as I listen on YouTube, I recently am a newcomer to YouTube, but I find when I listen on YouTube that there's a lot of men who are all in their emotions. Sometimes I hear women speaking more masculine, or at least having a clearer understanding of masculinity than men. A lot of men speak from their emotions, and I find that surprising. Uh, Over the past week, I've listened to one or two talks, conversations that I found very interesting. And one particular conversation that struck me was a conversation about uh, should men who have acquired the bag be able to have multiple wives or more than one wife? And I thought that was a very interesting discussion. So I tuned into it and I listened. Maybe it was a long show, but I listened to probably about 40 minutes to an hour, a little bit more than an hour of the conversation. And the conversation went around the panel and several people gave their opinions. But there was one particular opinion that really struck me. And that opinion was of a gentleman that said that uh, he would not want to take a second wife because of how it would affect or hurt his current wife's feelings. And I gave that some thought. And I said, as I thought about it, I realized that why would a man spend so much time considering the feelings of a woman? Why is a man so much in his emotions that he will speak for a woman without knowing what a woman would want or what a woman would accept? And what I realized as I listened to the conversation that though money and attaining the bag is a primary criteria for having more than one wife, it definitely is not the only criteria. There was a young lady on the panel, I don't remember her name, but she clearly stated that not every man had the constitution to engage in a relationship with more than one man, more than one woman. I apologize. As I listened to the conversation further, I heard different things being said. But when I walked away from that conversation, there were three things that really stood out for me that I believe a man who would seek to have multiple wives would want to have. Not counting money because that is a baseline. You must have the financial wherewithal to be able to have multiple wives. But a man must be decisive if he's going to have a second wife. The ability to make sound, good decision in a timely manner is very important. A man must have strong morals and ethics to set standards of behavior, both for his wives and for his children and the people in his community that he surrounds himself with. And finally, a man, he must be able to demonstrate control over his emotions to limit himself from being easily manipulated, and primarily by the women that he's chosen as wives, but by society in general. One of the reasons why I think I chose to mention this particular conversation that I listened to for a time was because several years ago in my past, I had two wives, and that was an experience for me. It taught me many things about myself, but it taught me many things about the women that I had chose. When I first had my first wife, before we committed into the relationship, I told her, I said, at some point, I may decide to take another woman as a wife. Is that a problem? She said no. So we were together for about three and a half, about 4 years. And then I went back to her and I told her, I'm going to take a second wife at this point. And she brought to me several women for me to meet. And we went out and I had conversations with them, but they did not suit me. And sometime later, she went on vacation. She went to France. She grew up in France. She was a chef. And so she went to visit her family in France and spent a couple of weeks there. Back then, I used to hang out a lot sometimes. And I don't know if you guys know AJ from 106 in Park. AJ and I were close. We knew each other very well. And he used to throw parties throughout New York. And he threw a party by the marina right down in Battery Park City. And I went to the party. It was an all white party, had a great time. And I met a young lady there at that party. She was there with some family friends and her sisters. And I approached her. We started dancing. And we danced for about 40 minutes to an hour. I was sweaty and tired. So after they switched up the music, I pulled her to the side and I said, you know, you're thirsty? Let's go grab a drink. So we did, and we started to talk. And at the end of the night, I took her home. Back then, I used to have a limo that I used to reserve when I hang out. And so I took her home and her cousins and her sister, and we exchanged numbers, of course. And soon thereafter, like either Monday or Tuesday of the following week, she called me up and she asked me what I like to eat. So I basically told her what I didn't like to eat. I don't eat unclean foods. I don't eat shrimps. I don't eat crab. I don't eat lobsters. I don't eat pork. I don't eat bacon. I don't eat ham. Things like that. So she asked me for the menus of the restaurants where I ate. So I faxed them over to her. And every day between 7 and 7:30, she would call me up, ask me what I wanted to eat. She would order my breakfast, and she would pay for it on a credit card. And this was before our first date. So we had a date like maybe almost 2 weeks later because my schedule was busy. And we went out one Saturday night, and I took her to one of my favorite places. And we had a conversation there that night. And I told her, I said, you know, I like the way you move. I like your personality, and I like your character. And I want you to be my second wife. Now, she didn't show any indication at that time. We had a good conversation about it, and she seemed to have handled the conversation well. I actually, when I went home that night, I thought, wow, that's not what I was expecting. But lo and behold, came Monday, I did not hear from her. She did not call me. I didn't get my breakfast, so I gave her a call. She did not answer. So that was a Monday, and it was a slow Monday. So I told my boss, hey, I'm going to take lunch early. So around 11 o'clock, I left. And I told him I'll be back before the market closed. And I went down to Brooklyn. She was an RN. She worked at a hospital in downtown Brooklyn. And I went to visit her. Her mother also worked there. And I asked her mom where she was. She told me. And I went to the other building and we sat down and had a conversation. As we talked it over, she said she had spoke to her mother about it, and she spoke to her aunt about it. And her aunt basically told her, what did she think of this guy? Did you like him? Did he treat you well? Uh, do you see yourself being with him long term? And she said yes to those questions when she had the conversation with her aunt. So her aunt said, look, he's being honest with you. He's telling you what he wants. If you believe you can live with him in that kind of relationship, go for it. And she decided she would say yes. And that was the beginning of our relationship with my taking a second wife. That second wife was true experience for me because one of the things I would say for a man, if you take a second wife, I think depending on the woman you choose, it can bring you to a much higher level of accomplishments and success. Women that are in your corner will keep you on your toes. They will check you. They will see your blind spots and the things that you don't see, and they will help you be a better man and be better at what you do. Fortunately for me, my wives, they were not argumentative. Soon thereafter, when my first wife came back from her vacation, I told her I met someone and I wanted her to meet her. So I did introduce my wives to each other. Initially, my first wife didn't want to speak to her. And then, because back then we used to have caller ID, I usually would call my second wife before I went to bed when I got home, and we would speak for about a half an hour. And I would hang up the phone and go to sleep. One day, my second wife called me up while I was at work, and she said, "Hey, my cousin is having a birthday. I'd like to do a party for her at a restaurant where we used to have a reserved section in the VIP section. Can we can we go there and have it? And am I going to come down?" So I told her, no, I didn't have plans on hanging out that night, but if you need, I can speak with Tom and he can let you in. So she said, sure. So I did that. And then she called me back and insisted that I come. So I spoke to some of my buddies at work and I said, hey, let's go hang out. So and so wanted us to meet up. And they brought their girlfriends and my boss brought his wife. So we got there and we're hanging out. My second wife is there. We greeted each other. We're drinking, we're talking. And then soon after, and I asked her, where was your cousin that's having the birthday? She goes, oh, something came up. She had to leave. So that was the story. She went outside, and when she went outside, she excused herself and then she went outside. And I'm waiting for her to come back, but I'm talking with my friends. And soon thereafter, my boss's wife taps me on the shoulder and she says, Lee, guess who's here? That was my first wife. She said her name. So I turned around, I saw her, I went over to her and I gave her a hug, gave her a kiss. And soon after, my second wife came in. So everyone in there, they did not know. Everyone there now is looking to see a fight. They think my second wife is going to mop the floor with my first wife because she was bigger. She was a thick girl. And so I just hugged both of them, kissed them, and we sat down and I ordered drinks for both of them. Everyone was like totally baffled. And the waitress, the barmaid in the VIP section was a tall, blonde Czechoslovakian girl who I had gotten to know well. So when she came over and she served our drinks and I introduced her, she was like, Lee, I didn't know you were that type of man. I said, what type of man did you think I was? So she came back and she gave me a bottle of champagne on the house. We had a good celebration that night. And we, as husband and wives, we hung out together in many places. She had a 5-year-old daughter at the time. She would bring her daughter over on the weekend. I had my two sons. My two sons was, I think my oldest was 12 and my youngest was 8. They're about 4 years apart. And we would hang out as a family. We would go out shopping. We would go to the mall. My son used to love going down to South Street Seaport, especially in the summer when they had the summer fest and the jazz festival. So we would hang out there together, all of us as a family. And her daughter loved Uno's, the pizza shop. So we would dine at Uno's from time to time and have pizza with the kids. Most of the times, the relationship was good. There were times when, as women, they would argue and have issues. Normally, I would sit back and allow the women to handle their differences. But if it spilled over into the broader relationship where I was being dragged into a discussion, normally at that point, I would call a meeting, a family meeting. It would either be on a Sunday evening or a Saturday evening. And we would sit down and have a conversation, and I would listen to both of what they had to say. And then I would give my ruling. And after that, that was the end of the issue. Soon thereafter, my wives became so good with each other I would come home from work and they're talking. They're making plans. They would come over. My second wife would come over. They would clean the house together. They would cook. They would go shopping. I mean, it was probably one of the best experience I've ever had as a man dealing with in a relationship. And I would say this, to any man who have the wherewithal or who would consider having more than one wife. If you want to perform at your peak, at your best, there's no better way to achieving that than to having multiple wives and women who love you. Now, you have to understand that you are the centerpiece of this relationship. You are the one that decides. Like sometimes, the wives would argue about who is who and what place they may be in the relationship. That's not theirs to judge. That is you who will judge which position each wife would have at different times. Now, obviously, one wife came at a certain time and the other wife came at a different time. But with regard to how they have liberty in your life, that's your decision to rule and to make decision about. And by taking those things away from them, they don't have to argue about stuff like that. And I think it's very important as we go forward. I don't know, how we're going to build a new Black community, but one of the things we have to realize is that everything that we had as a culture was taken away from us. Our language that we spoke, the life in which we live, the names that we even had. So we really have to rebuild our culture from scratch. And I believe many of us come from a Christian background, at least so we say. But when I go into the scriptures does not have anything against a man having more than one wife. Matter of fact, the scriptures have a rule or a law as to how a man should behave if he has more than one wife. A man should not diminish in anything from his first wife, including the sexual pleasures of that first wife. So you definitely have to know that you have the virile strength to really service two women, but you definitely also have to have the financial ability to provide for two women and the children that they will bring you and the life that you would have. I think these are things that we should really consider as a life in terms of building a new Black community, because the community that we live in today was constructed for us by those who brought us here in this land to serve them. And one of the things that they have methodically continued to do is persuade our women to kill our children. And our children is our power. Our children is our legacy. About several months ago, I was listening to a documentary on South Africa. And back in the late 50s, coming into the 60s, the Black South African people started to have big families. And between 1960 and 1990, they went from 40 million people to 90 million people, Black people. And at that point, there was nowhere possible for the white people in South Africa to continue to rule over them. It just was not feasible for 3 million to rule over 90 million. And we can be in a very similar situation here in the United States if we really focus on building a family. Because back in the day, our families used to be 7, 8, 10 deep. My grandfather had 12 children, 2 girls, 10 boys. 1 girl died, and I only had 1 aunt. So we come from big families and different structures. When you read about Gideon, Gideon was a chosen man by God. He had 10 wives and 70 children. When you read about Abraham, Abraham had, I think, 4 wives and a number of children. When we go back and look at the Bible as a reference when it comes to how men of power can establish themselves and rule, your power is in your lineage. Your power is in your legacy. Your power is in you being a king or a sovereign ruler over your families and your communities. And I think that starts for us with establishing families again. And families, some men, not all men, some men can handle more than one wife. Some men would only want one wife. And for those men that only want one wife, there's no law against it, and no one would hold anything against you for having one. But for men that believe that they have power in rulership and the dominion in having multiple wives, because my wives work and they contributed to the family. And when I say they contributed to the family, there are times when we wanted things that, though I may have had the money to purchase it outright, I sat down and I laid out a plan on what this is what we're going to do, and this is going to be the contribution. And the woman had no problem contributing. And I think as we go forward, we really should rethink what type of life we want to have as Black men. Black men living a life without boundaries, Black men living a life with power, Black men establishing a whole new dynamic in America, living our life the way we want to live it, as opposed to where the broader society has laid out some template that we should have that don't work for us. So, what I would say is there was a lot more that I'd like to add to this conversation, but I believe there may be some questions uh, with regard to this topic because it was a heated discussion when I listened to it, and there's more to it. I don't want to get into too many personal things, but wherever I can add to give some give some clarity to this conversation, I think men who are accomplished, men who we might say get the bag or high value men, men that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year or millions of dollars a year, these men have demonstrated the ability to rule significant territories in their business sphere. And I think as we go forward, we need to be able to look at that as part of our community, that some men are capable of ruling and living a life with multiple women. And there are women that I know that would gladly participate in that life. And I'm not talking about having a side piece. I'm not talking about cheating on your woman. I've never cheated on a woman. If I was going to be with another woman, I told my woman up front. So I've never really cheated on a woman, nothing like that. And I've had multiple women in my life pretty much throughout my life, with the exception of a small period when I was married to my first wife, the woman that had my children. So that marriage, I stayed purely devoted to her in that marriage. But after that marriage failed, after that point, I said I would never have one woman again. And one of the benefits of having multiple wives is that it takes away the power of manipulation from women over men. One of the things that a lot of women manipulate men with is sex. And when you have multiple wives, a woman is unable to manipulate you with sex. So, JR, I think at this point, I'd like to open up the conversation and see if there's anyone here who would like to discuss this further. I chose this topic to discuss with regard to self control, with regard to living a life with ethics and morals and boundaries so you can live a more full life. Because I think there's some men that have greater ideas as to what life could really be like. And I think as Black men, we're just only now beginning to scratch the surface with brothers who are traveling around the world and things of that nature. And we're just starting to flap our wings as men. And I think there's more to explore with regard to what a new Black community would look like for Black men and Black men ruling, not Black women. So let's have that conversation.
I appreciate that, Mr. Lee. I do have the lines open. I just dropped the link right now. Keep
Okay.
constantly dropping it. We do have somebody that's waiting. When you guys come up, make sure you guys are on camera the entire time while you're waiting and throughout the conversation. You must be on camera. I must see that you are an actual person before I bring you up. So we'll bring up Definite G. Recognize you. I seen you moving. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the show. What you got for us?
Hi, good afternoon. How you
And
doing, Definite G?
I'm doing all right. How's it going, Mr. Lee?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Man, you are absolutely right. I mean, that's one of the big tenets of masculinity is temperance, that's self-control. Because if we do not have that a measure of, just sitting back and just thinking about what we're about to do before we do it instead of making those rash decisions, like that will make and break a society, as we see in the Black community, how Black women are running it, and they're running it into the ground because they're making all these rash decisions without actually standing back and thinking about what they're going to do before they do it. See, this is what, and even especially when the manosphere was, creating that, it was very pride based. It's like, I'm doing better than you, and there's no one better than me. That's not a healthy mindset of man should be developing. We have to have humility when it comes to maintaining anything, is because even the most successful people, they didn't do it on their own. They had other people to help them out, to give them that advice, that mentorship, that guidance necessary to get to the next level. So self-control and having that temperance is very essential to, especially manhood in any society that wants to, be better and grow.
Absolutely, because one of the things I used to notice, not so much now, but it still occurs, was in the early days, and I started watching a manosphere, I think late 2018, coming into 2019. And there used to be uh, a lot of threats and anger and boisterous behavior between men. And it was very difficult to engage in a discussion where Black men had a difference of opinion. And that's something that I think in uh, the third segment of this talk, that's something I will bring up and try to outline better, to have that conversation about Black men respecting Black men, because it is something that I think we lack, is respect towards one another, that we can have a discussion, have a difference of opinion, and still walk away as colleagues or friends, and that we always want to threaten one another. So that, absolutely, you're right. That's something that I hope we can evolve from in 2022, because unity is what is going to allow us to take power, both within our communities, with the relationship with our Black women at large, and within the greater society as well.
Yeah. And also, my last point, I don't want to, take up all the time. What we need to bring back amongst Black men is fraternity. The point I just said about like how successful men, they didn't make it on their own. They got the mentorship. They talked to the right types of people. What we need to have, especially the older ones, like really bringing back that camaraderie amongst men to say like, hey, I got your back. Hey, I will teach you. I will show you the ropes necessary to get you where you need to go. And having that, that bond between brothers, that brotherhood. So that's what we need to bring back in the Black community is fraternity. Healthy,
Yep.
not the gang stuff, but like that healthy fraternity.
Well, I think you're right about that. One of the things that I would suggest also is, what if we were able to just say hello to a brother every day we pass one on the street or wherever we see one in person? Because, living outside of the country, when I travel overseas, when you see another Black person and you're a Black person, we always speak to each other. And I think sometimes in America, we take each other for granted. And I think if we were to just say hello, hi, hey, good morning, hey, good afternoon, you all right? You all right? What's up, my man? Whatever, right? I remember back in the 50s, the 60s and the 70s, we used to do that, but we have drifted away from that. And I think because of the drug game that we have engaged in for so long, that have divided us because of individuality, my success over your success. And I think you're absolutely right. A form of fraternity have to be established. One of the things I've heard from a couple of brothers is, creating, meetups that'll be going around the different cities for brothers who have YouTube channels and have created a following. to have meetups. One of the things I would say though is that whatever program or things that we do, it shouldn't be free. There should be some compensation involved because people don't respect things that are free. And one thing I find is that as men, we tend to abuse one another. And I think we have to get away from that taking advantage of one another. You know, just because I'm black, I should get a black discount. No, you should pay the price. And I think if we respect each other, that what another brother has to bring to the table to offer is valuable and it's worth the price, and we pay it, then when we establish something and we want to charge a price for it, we can expect someone else to pay that price too. But if you're not willing to pay the price for your own growth and self development and you want it for free, no, I think that's asking a lot. And I think sometimes that's how black men lose respect for one another because, there's always going to be those who will disrespect you. And I think people find it less easy to disrespect someone when they're paying for it. If you're paying to go to college, you listen to what the professor has to say. Even if at the time you may not understand or may disagree, you still listen to what they have to say. And I think we would have more respect for one another if we pay for the things that we want. So that's my point of view. Anything else?
Nah, I mean, yeah, thank you for, your wisdom, and yeah, keep going, man.
Appreciate it. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
All right, y'all. We do have the lines open, so if you want to call in, go ahead and get them while you can. I keep it open for about another 5 minutes just to see if somebody else call in. I did see somebody. He didn't want to cam up, but there was a person on there was questioning. Let me see if I can find that question real quick. It says, "What better way to demonstrate self-control than monogamy, one husband and one wife?"
Self-control.
I don't know if you
Well,
can see that on the screen. He
yeah,
was
I can see it.
questioning.
What
Yeah.
better way? Because monogamy is something that is recently invented. If you can go back and look at any society, there's no society on the planet where there have ever been one woman, one wife as a broad spectrum. There have been one man who have only chosen one wife to be with one wife. But what you're actually saying is to be loyal. And if you're referring to loyalty, you can be loyal to two women. You can be loyal to three women. You can be loyal to four women. And you can be loyal to one woman. It all depends on the man that you are. Loyalty to one and loyalty to four doesn't change loyalty because you don't stray outside of those that you have made commitments to. So that's how I would respond to that.
Okay. Guys, have any questions? Click that link. Call in. I'll try to see if I see some other ones through there. Is there anything else you want to add on to that?
Well, I would say that. Oh, were you speaking to me?
No, we
Oh,
have
okay.
somebody come up. Is there anything else
Okay.
you want to add on to that? All right.
Well, I would say.
But you let me know when you got it off. You got it off? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I had to come in and support Mr. Lee one more time. Another great session, Mr. Gentleman. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would want you to speak a little bit more to the part where you talked about, well, two parts. I'm going to see if I can try to remember.
Sure.
You talked about just listening to YouTube for quite a little while right now, and you found that men, women are they seem to have the better ability or maybe better understanding of what masculinity is, and men tend to speak more in their emotions. I would like you to speak more so to why it is important that we don't allow this. In a lot of these conversations, I think we're more interested in holding women accountable.
Yeah.
And but me and you agree completely on this, and I disagree with probably the whole of manosphere. I tend to, on this part. But I think it's important to speak to why we really can't allow this on an individual level, individual relationship level, as well as on a community level. Because I find that where we tend to differ is everyone's goal, at least claim, is that they want to build back the community, right? So that's one. The second part, let me see if I can try to, maybe while you answer that, I'll try to remember that, because
Okay.
I have to
Sure.
throw a shirt on really quickly to make sure I come in and support this session, because as you can see, this is not the most popular session. We'll rather talk
Sure.
about the problems than the solutions.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Well, I will say this. Uh, for women who understand masculinity better, or at least when they speak about it in the manosphere spaces, and they have a clearer ability to articulate masculine behavior and masculine rights, I just think that these women just have a better grasp of what patriarchy may be and what a man should look like and how a man should act and behave. Uh, Women who behave in a more masculine way, that's a different issue. Women who behave in a more masculine way, I believe those women, if they seek to change their behavior, can have can be coached into making modification in that behavior. That coaching would have to come from other women to be able to get them to go back into more of their feminine nature, because they have strayed so far from their nature as a female that they have uh, developed so much more of a masculine way of thinking and acting, fighting in the streets, cursing, using language that is more historically referencing to men behavior as opposed to female behavior. Women are supposed to be more uh, kind to one another, to be the ones who provide comfort in times of even violence. But today, what we see is that women are freely willing to join in and participate in violent behavior. So for the women that have that type of way of being about themselves, that's something that definitely needs to be addressed and try to correct. I don't think every woman can make that change. I don't think every woman may want to make that change because they might not see anything wrong with it. They may have been raised from a very young person to engage in that kind of behavior for so long that it's all they know. So there are multiple things in that area. I think one of the things that we should really look to address is men who speak and think in a feminine way. That to me is the more critical issue, because leadership must come from the man. And if the man is preoccupied with the emotions of his woman, he is not in a masculine way of being. The scripture says that man was given dominion. When you look up the word dominion, dominion is rulership over all things. When we read in the New Testament, and I've heard both men and women speak of this over the past 3 to 6 months, that the order is God, Christ, man, woman, and children. As men, our job is to please Christ. Christ's job is to please God. Our women are supposed to please us. If we are trying to please them, we're going out of order. God don't try to please us. We're supposed to please him. And by we pleasing him, he rewards us with a better life. By our women pleasing us, we reward them with a better life. And children who are pleasing to their parents get more in life as well. So I think As men, we have to really start understanding the order of life, and especially the order of us as men who are supposed to be the gatekeepers and the rulers of this world, and how we should move and carry ourselves. Because trust me, if a man from 2,000 years ago was to show up in this time frame, he would see men that are completely feminine in his eyes, as opposed to men who are masculine. So I think with that regard, I think we should focus more on developing men that are masculine. And for the women who may have, uh, through maybe no fault of their own, but their own upbringing, tend to be masculine, that's something that the females who are in this space should try to address and provide avenues for those women who want to seek modification of their behavior to go through them. We shouldn't be spending time trying to teach no woman. We should spend our time building up men, building up leaders for the next generation, and to be a symbol for the generation that is right behind us now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did you remember your second
Yes, I
question?
do. Can you hear me now? Let's just make
Yes, I
sure.
can.
All right, good. So you spoke about the ability to be able to engage in conversations.
Right.
We find that when we do differ in opinions, we have a difficult time. I wouldn't say that personally. If you bring certain energy, I'm not engaging. It's as simple as that for me
Right.
personally. But if your conversation is dominated by just spelling out all the different problems and why we should hold women accountable, at that point I disconnect, because I don't think that's our leverage points, just like what you just spoke to. I think our leverage point is the masculine men. And that's what I was trying to see, there's a question that I had around it, but it was more so that I agree with you. I do agree that women have to conduct themselves in a certain way. I just feel like we set the tone, knowingly or unknowingly, intentionally or unintentionally. We set the tone. Maybe not in this generation. Maybe it's something that transcend into multiple lifespans into the past. Maybe a few hundred years. I don't know. Maybe just in the last 50 years. I think that's a big part of the conversation. I do think that women have responsibilities, but like you said, when we start to hold men accountable, it comes off a little bit too aggressive for the female gender. And but yeah, thank you so much for your time. It wasn't much of a question. I agree with you 100%. I'm supporting this show, Lapeef, JR. Let's keep it going. And thank
All
you,
right.
everybody.
Appreciate it, Ola.
All right.
Right.
One thing I would say to that
Mhm.
is that we should not look to do things unconsciously. We should do things with deliberateness, with intention,
Intentions.
and
Yeah.
not by circumstance or accident of some sort.
Hmm.
Leadership does not truly accomplish its goal where it happens by some form of luck or by some misfortune that turns out to be uh, serenity of some sort.
Right.
I think that we as Black men need to get out of kind of like living a life where it's just random. Things just happen and then we react to those things and try to capitalize on it and make the best of what will. I think that type of thinking is slack. As a man, you need to be purposeful. You need to have broad vision, distance, and time. You know, because of our conditions here as Black men in America, 500 years thereabouts, where we're so far removed from any form of leadership and being in power and ruling over our society, that we have no idea what that's like. We look at others and we praise people of other countries, leaders from other uh, parts of the world, but we don't think as ourselves as leaders, and we were leaders before, and we can be leaders again. And I think we need to really start looking at ourselves in a more circumspect way to question how we're behaving, how we're promoting ourselves. And this is something that I hear that women say a lot. And I think some men brush it to the side for whatever purpose. But Many women say that they want a man that would lead. They would follow a man that can lead. They would submit to a man that can lead. They would obey a man that can lead. So if a woman will put all of those conditions for a man living up to his rightful place as leadership over the family and the community, then why do we spend so much time caring about the emotions of women? We should spend our time building ourselves to become leaders that the women will feel fully in her spirit as a female and as feminine to follow men that are accomplished leaders without question. That's my point of view.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
We'll talk soon. JR, later.
No problem. Thank you, sir.
Hey, Ricky, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Hey, brother Lee, how you doing this
I'm
weekend?
doing good.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, as usual, thanks so much, Jr. You know what it is. How y'all doing, man? Hey, Mr. Lee, can we talk on the importance of family,
Sure.
the importance of legacy, and how this society is programming generations after generations that it's just all about you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about you building your legacies. Go ahead, girl, make that choice. You know, abortion's legal in most states. Don't worry about it, right? Don't
Yes.
worry about picking the right man before you even lay down with him. So, you know, these options are not even options because just like you said, my friend, if a man is leading and he's got the intention to take care of you as his wife or wives and has that ability, why are we continue to put ourselves in these situations?
Well, I will say this. I think one of the things that I find most valuable about the Black Manosphere is that the Black Manosphere has an opportunity, a very unique opportunity, to speak to the voice of what it is that we want as a community. And we can become that lighthouse to setting the new standards of what the new Black community would look like. For me, when it comes to legacy, the first and only thing that I consider is the children. Without the children, there is no legacy. Doesn't matter how much money you have, you leave it to the state. Children is the most important thing in building a legacy. And there was a time when we understood that, but we have fallen so far away from that now that we don't find value in our children. I mean, when we think of how many abortions our Black sisters have committed over the past 50 years, those have been leaders, those have been businessmen, those have been teachers, those have been individuals who could have transformed our society where we could have had a better opportunity in this country. But so many of them were killed for personal gain and personal pleasure. And I think, you know, we as men going forward really need to set the tone to what family will be. Several months ago, I think maybe in December or late November, I was listening to a brother's show, and he's a young man, I think in his late 30s or early 40s, and he's very articulate. And I used to like listening to the things that he had to say. But one day he had a show dealing with legacy. And on that show, he was talking and he said if he could not find an ADOS Black woman or FBA Black woman who will come under his leadership, he will not have any children. And when I heard that, it blew me away. And I think Black Uru was on the show and he questioned him and probed him about, you know, that point. And he insisted that if he could not find a Black woman that would submit under him, he would not have any children. And I thought to myself that if he was to actually do that, if he come from the descendants of slave in America who have existed here now going on 500 years, and his forefathers have procreated that his life would be at this point, a pivoted turning point in our society here in this bastard place that we have been placed to serve, and that he would then cut off his ancestors from any more existence by not having any children because of the behavior of a woman. I found that so incredible that a woman would make a man decide to cut off his whole life and not have any heirs going into the future. A man's immortality is his sons. It is the male child that bring back the society, that bring back our people. A woman can't bring back our people. It is the seed of man and the seed of anything on this planet, whether it's from a tree. If you have an apple tree in the United States and you took the seed of that apple tree and you planted it in Africa, would it not bring back an apple tree? Of course. If you took it to China, would it not bring back an apple tree in China? What may change is the coloration, how sweet or tang it might be because of how much rain, how rich the soil is, or how much water it may receive. Those things in appearance might change, but the core of what it is, it's still a US American Macintosh apple or whatever it is, right? So the seed of the black man, wherever we plant it, we will bring back a black child. The outward appearance may change somewhat, but it's our seed. And we have to understand that. And what's happening with Black America and Black women's behavior today, 50 years from now, may not be happening at all. And for him to end his generation in this time and not have his future seed to live in a place where Black men could be ruling their own communities, their own societies, or maybe having their own country liberated from America or whatever, and they would never get to see that. I thought that was for me at that point. I lost respect for him because with all his intelligence, what he failed to understand was what is real legacy. Legacy ain't got nothing to do with money. Legacy has to do with your ancestry and with your planting your seed forward, making sure. Matter of fact, in the Bible, there's a scripture specifically that addressed this. It says, if you have a brother and your brother dies before he can have a child with his wife, if he's married, but he's unable to have a child with his wife because he died, you must have a seed with that wife of your brother to rear up seed for him that he may go forth and be able to continue his line under his name in your family. So it's baffling to me that we don't really understand what community is all about, what legacy is all about, what really building generational wealth is all about. It starts with the family. It starts with our children. And we really need to set that as the tone as Black men going forward, because once we establish what it is that we want to establish as leaders in our community, the women will follow. Women by nature will follow strong men. I mean, you guys know I've stated I am not a tall man, but I will tell you this. I remember when I went from making 100,000 a year to 100,000 a month, one day I had to look in the mirror and say, did I become 6 feet tall or did I become more handsome? Because the amount of women that would be attracted to me was far greater than my stature would normally by observation should permit. Women have an inert nature to seek out and to find men who are strong and who are successful and who are capable of leading. So I think why I like being with this network, I think I can lend my voice to a corner of the market or a corner of this manosphere to really look on how, excuse me, how can we develop positive Black men to really take the harness of leadership and go forth and execute and then see what follows.
All right, I'll get back with you, Ricky. Hold on one second. Mr. Ingle Experience, what's going on, brother? How you doing? What you got for us?
Can't hear you.
There you go.
Hey, there we go. Hey, salute to you, brothers, man. Mr. Lee,
Salute to you.
I listened to the entire show last week, man. It's a pleasure to listen to the intellectual brother especially one that comes from a masculine perspective. And salute to you, JR, also, man. Much respect for this platform, because they're not a lot of platform where Black men can get together, have intellectual conversation with reason and logic, and not be in their feelings, because that seems to be one of the main problems that we have with communication, especially in the community. I had a question to you, and I have to say that I absolutely agree with many of your points. My question is relating to, in terms of restoring communities, how do you think, I mean, obviously we've had 50, 60 years where the government has been a tremendous influence on the Black community.
Right.
Even so, our women have voted for policies that are anti-family,
Right.
anti-union. How do you think government empowerment? How do you overcome government empowerment? Because it's not just us and our women. I mean, example, you go to the various countries, third world countries, where the men are a part of survival. Women are in grave harm when they're uncovered, and our women have become quite government empowered. Whereas, you know, obviously with the court system and with the police, I used to work as a police officer for 21 years. So I'm quite familiar with it. I've coached many kids, especially kids from single moms, single family homes. How do we overcome this government empowerment issue? Because it's just not us and our women. Big Daddy government sits in the living room too.
Well, I think most people will probably look first at creating some sort of program that would help the youth. I think personally, I would say the responsibility is on Black men to develop themselves so they're able to put themselves in a position of power to circumvent the powers that be. And what do I mean by that? One of the things I think we should address, and I'm not sure if I had spoken to JR about it as of yet, but I think we need to use our money to create avenues of opportunities. And what I'm suggesting is, what if we were able to, say, get 50 YouTubers who are prominent in the Black YouTube sphere, and we could develop and incorporate an LLC organization as a political PAC. We can have a 9-member board of directors, a CEO, a president to run it, and a secretary and a treasury. And brothers can make donations monthly using the income from their channels, 5%, 8%, 10%, whatever the agreement would be after such a meeting and of the minds and sitting down and getting our heads together. If we were to deposit between 50 different YouTubers, $1,000 a month, that's 50 grand a month, that's 600 grand a year. If we double that, that's 1.2 million. So easily between now and the next election, we could easily raise between $3 to $5 million. With that type of flexibility, we would be able to push and run different politicians for, whether it be senator, congressman. We can go after prosecutors. We would have the advertising budget to go over locally to advertise against certain judges that would be rerunning to try to get seats that we know profit from criminalizing Black men and giving us long sentences. I think one of the things we need to do, we need to have a multi-pronged approach to, one, establish institutions, because individuals can be taken down. Individuals can be pulled into scandals with women. Women have been used to overcome men who have had great ideas to push forth our society forward. So if a particular CEO of the organization was to be scarred by scandal, the organization can replace him and the organization go forward. I think we need to start building organizations that will fight on our behalf for the things that we need to accomplish. The NAACP, I think, does not do enough. The Black Caucus in Washington, D.C. does little or nothing at all to help Black people. I think we need to look clearly at the things that we need to replace and be headstrong in overthrowing those who have worked against us in politics and in business and in our social fabric of our society. We must first start with those that are of our people, because that's where we would have the most influence. But then we also have to go after those who are in power that are also not of our people, that are low-hanging fruit. A prosecutor and a judge are low-hanging fruit that we can go after. We can prevent them from getting seats of power, or we could get them overthrown and taken out of power. Those are the things that we should look at for the next 4 to 8 years. So by 2030, we can have a base infrastructure within the society where the Black man's image can be changed, where Black men will have 3 or 4 or 5 different organizations, multi-pronged, going after different things within the society. By 2030, then we can look at how we can take influence within the Black community, overthrow these preachers who are just robbers of the community, and we should build institutions that where the community contribute to and we can build. We need grocery stores. We need malls. We need corporations. We need to be able to have the opportunity to go over and take over corporations or build them from the ground up if so choose. But the only way we're going to do this is by Black men leadership and Black men supporting Black men. We can't look for handouts because it's not going to come. The white man or any other nation that is in power in this society will not advance us the ability or allow us the ability to gain a strong foothold of power in the society, because what have we not touched that once given an opportunity to enter into that room, we don't take it over? There's nothing that we don't take over once we establish ourselves. So it's a very small thing that I believe that if Black man was to come into some leadership in the business class and start to take leadership in our political class. I'm not talking about presidency. I'm talking about from the mayor down, or even from the governor down. Those are places where we can have serious influence in our society. And once you're in those positions, you have the opportunity to allocate dollars into the community from the federal government, from your state taxes, municipal and state and local. And these are the ways in which then we can structure programs run, monitored, and controlled by Black men leadership. I'm not saying that Black women won't play a part, but Black women have to come under the leadership of Black men, because for the past 50 years, they have had the reins of leadership and power, and they have not done well with it. The fact that we're having this conversation now, and many of the brothers in this conversation, in this sphere, are having conversations similarly, shows that the leadership that we have had in the Black community have faltered and have failed.
Hey, brother JR, can I address Mr. Lee, because it's a very
Go ahead.
Obviously it's an intellectual conversation. We all know that pandering pays quite a bit, and we know that even in these social media spaces, masculine men like you, like JR, there's such a pushback, even from a lot of our women that don't want to even hear the truth, and a lot of our men that have become, I hate to use the word, feminized, unconscious simps, I call them, and simps, which is probably the biggest obstacles to masculine men like yourself and me. And even the masculine conversations that we have about facts, information, statistics, and data becomes a threat to their manhood, and they get in their emotions and they'll attack the person and not the message. But getting along with that, we talk about what I want to talk about is understanding that much of the policy and much of the social programming now with us in the Black community, this trend to attack masculinity. I know even with the Black Lives Matter organization you were speaking about, organizations themselves, one of their platform charters used to be redefining the family, the Black family, where We know that the importance of fathers, the importance of masculinity in the house and in the households, and the agendas seem now, whether it be from the government, whatever, is to transform our boys into girls and to have this gender neutrality that they're pushing for. How do we combat that and build a community when it seems like the push now is to attack us at the core of the family and at the core of even our gender identity?
Well, I would say this, that, like I said, many are using organizations to speak as though this organization is a representation of our community. I think for us to be able to push back, it is important that we establish organizations also that can push back. Besides pushing back, we can put out our propaganda to show strong Black families. And as we go forth in this fair, and the women that are coming into this fair, and the women who are marrying men that are like-minded, masculine, strong Black men who are accomplishing, we would have physical representation of Black male leadership. And we have to be able to promote that. And I think that's something that we should look to promote, if not monthly, weekly. Every week there should be a family feature, or every month there should be a family feature of Black men leading their families, wives and children, wherever they may be in the United States. And I think that's one way to combat the image of weak, gender neutral Black men or feminized Black men, and have a society that is pushed from a feminine or female perspective. I think as men, we can't just lay down and let this train run over us. We have to set up ways to derail it, to stop it from going any further. And I think the voice of the Black manosphere has been heard. And I think that is one of the reasons why now there's such a push to silence the Black manosphere. But one of the things I see also is that the more you push back on the Black manosphere, the more we will get attention, because the people who are coming up against us, whether it be females or whether it be men, it's a double-edged sword. They're giving us more and more recognition at the same time too. And when we get the recognition, we should take advantage and use our voice to expound on the things that we are trying to get accomplished. And there are people out there in the world that look at life in America and say, no, this is not the way it should go. Whether they be white, whether they be Latino, whether they be Arab, whether they be Indian, no matter what nation of people they come from, they can see also that they don't want this for their children. And whatever the broader society becomes, it then influences everyone on the way down. So we can gain alliances along the way as well. Those who support our ideas and would like to build. And I think we as Black men have the strongest opportunity to change the course in America, because we built this country and we know our enemy better than anyone else. We just have to be willing to fight and be willing to sacrifice, because in a war there will be casualties, and some people will go down as a casualty by reputation. You know, you could be slandered. False information can come out and make you look bad and cause you to step back. But this is one of the reasons why I believe that we need to start establishing organizations, institutions, because you can take one man down, but you can't take the institution down. And the institution can easily put another leader in place who is following the mission and the vision of that institution. And we as Black men will craft those things. Mr. Ingram?
Yes, salute to you, sir. I mean, I appreciate your response. I guess I'll give somebody else a chance to talk, because you know me, I have like 20 questions, and because you know, I'll be honest with you, man. It's
sure.
it's refreshing. Like I come to JR. JR has this stoicism about him too, man, with his beard, man. He's just real calm and masculine. He speaks without even speaking. When I talk to you, it's very complicated and very difficult because even in the space, and even from the profession that I come from, you deal with a lot of emotionality, especially in our boys. And we understand that the mixture of testosterone and female emotions can create huge explosions. And many times, even when I respond to calls, when the young men are wailing their hands around, I'm almost jumping in front of them so they don't get shot, because I understand that that emotion is not a threat display. They're just flickering. I'm like, not some of the white guys might not understand that.
Emotion in men are a threat. Emotion in women are not so much of a threat. Emotion in women is used to manipulate. But because men generally, when they handle things, at some point it escalates to violence. Men that have little or no control of their emotions, or have their emotions running rampant within their sphere of thought, tend to lose control much quicker. And that leads to violence. And it usually leads to death, because in the time in which we live, men don't have the respect of one another to fight, disagree, and then later walk away and become friends. When I was young, I had many fights growing up. But I would say this: many of the men I had fought and the boys I fought when I was a teenager, we became friends and there was respect between one another as we grew. But when you put a bullet in someone, there's no chance. So I think we have to get to a point where when we look in the mirror, the image that we see is an image that we respect and love and care about, and not some form of a monster or a beast.
But I guess I want to ask that question.
You know what? Hold on one second. JR,
Yeah.
do you have the ability to load the monster image?
Yeah. Give me one
Can
second.
you put that up right now so I can elaborate?
Well, while he's doing that, let me ask you a question, brother.
Sure.
I've made this argument in this proposal before with the community, especially. I've had my wars with the community, especially there's wars about them putting these drug clinics in Black communities. That's a whole different topic for another day. But obviously that's destruction, because you're bringing these people from outside of the community to destroy it. But in terms of paid mentors, obviously we want to keep our best and brightest young men out there producing, opening avenues and opening doors. I know we advocate for a lot of policies in the community, but how important you think it is to have paid mentorship? We have a 75% single parent rate that needs to stop immediately, because that's creating havoc in the community, especially with crime. And you have these boys being raised without fathers. That's a huge problem. Do you think paid mentors should be something, at least until we can get this problem under control and get some discipline instilled? Do you think that would be a policy that they need to advocate for during the next election?
Well, I'm not sure if it's something that would come from the election, because whenever the government have their hand in something, they tend to manipulate it for their best outcome, which is not for our best outcome. So when you say paid mentorship, I would look at that, especially from a professional like yourself, who came up in the community as a former police officer, that you have many contacts and relationship with other men like yourself. And I think that's something that should be started as a private venture, not politically influenced. I think we need to limit as much interaction and how we may depend on our development going forward from the political structure. I think our interaction with the political structure should be for change, to give Black men more power within the infrastructure. But in terms of something such as this that is directly related to the community, I think this is something that we should create independent of government. And the fact that there would be a paid mentorship, it doesn't have to be a large sum, but I think making it a paid mentorship, I think, has value because I've heard conversations that if a man was to, on his own, mentor children in the community, and one or two of those children really took a liking to that individual, that there's a potential that that woman can go and seek child support from that man. So I think we have to uh, create some kind of a barrier between a professional relationship with children that are not our children, but children that we care for as part of our community, that we would like to instill in them, those kids, a better foundation and moral conduct, ethical behavior one towards another, respect towards adults themselves, parents. I would say police officers, but today police officers don't carry themselves that they should get the respect that we know from past, how they used to have respect in throughout the United States. But my point being is that I do think that such a program should be developed. I just don't think that it should come from the government or be liaison with the government, because once the government have financial contributions, the government then have direction on where it will go. And usually what would happen is that the mentorship will change from black men leadership to black women leadership. That's what will happen. So we need to uh, make sure those type of corruption does not seep into.
Hey, Lee, I think something happened with your audio. Your audio went low. Hey, E, if you in a chat, man, come on back on real quick so I can go ahead and put you in a conversation. You've been waiting. No, I can't. No, we still can't hear you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you clicked something or.
No, I didn't touch anything, but let me go to settings and see where.
Make sure just make sure the mic is make sure it's plugged in. Make sure nothing didn't yank out. Also, go to cam and mic and make sure it's connected. Make sure it's not connected to the camera.
Right, it did not switch to the cam.
All right. See if you can move the mic closer to your mouth. Then try that.
Yeah, you sound like you had to unplug or something. Something unplugged. When he moved his elbow, something may have unplugged.
Yeah. While you guys are waiting, if you haven't had a chance, opportunity, hit the like button right now. Hit the like button. Make sure you be respectful in the chat. Make sure you guys are being respectful in the chat. I see the green in the chat. Appreciate all the members. Thank you. If you guys want to call in, make sure you click that link. The conversation will be ending shortly, so I don't intend on us being on here too much longer. So if you're going to call in, got a question, go ahead and call in right now. E, if you're listening, go ahead. Come on back in, brother, so I can try to get you in this conversation. How's it looking, Lee?
It got worse.
Yeah. We appreciate your patience. Just trying to correct the sound real quick. We appreciate you guys. Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Unmute himself. See what works.
Is he mute? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Lee. Hey Lee, you gotta come off of mute. You're on mute right now. You're on mute. There you go.
Okay.
All right.
How about now?
I can hear you now.
You're back.
I'm back. You can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize.
Hey, Mr. Lee.
Go ahead.
Brother Lee, I guess one of the reasons why I said that paid mentorship thing is because what happens is a lot of talk. I mean, I know certain people, like, I don't want to say his name too loud because he's not a very popular guy. Boyce Watkins and other guys are suggesting that a lot of black men come back to the community and wipe up some of these single moms, which I don't totally agree with, because here's the issue is, if we have an undisciplined problem, I don't think some of our best and brightest young men should be cleaning up anybody's undisciplined behavior. First, we need to get the discipline done. And there's so many programs that our community advocate for women, for girls and women. But I think to build a community, you have to pour more of that funding into men and boys, because as go to men, go to community. Many times that we find.
That's true. But the thing is that is not the trajectory of where government is looking to invest. They're not looking to invest in black men.
No.
We know that. With regard to our young men who are building for a future, our best and our brightest, I do not think that they should go back and clean up someone's mess. No. I think for the women who are listening to the men in the manosphere and they want to make improvements and changes in their behavior and in their life. You know, one thing about men, I think men are practical, and some men obviously will make adjustments in their life, and some men probably will take a woman that have a child. If the woman is going to come under his leadership and build with him the way he wants to move. But I think just a blanketed statement, come back and wife up these women that have gone out and made bad decisions and have done nothing to change their behavior to improve themselves to be worthy to be chosen as a wife. I think a woman must first make herself capable of being chosen as a wife. So if she is not doing that, there's no reason why a man should choose her just because she's a female. There are many females on this planet.
Hey, Lee, just so you know, I got them pictures uploaded if you want me to show them.
Okay, are they separate? Just show the
Yeah,
one
they're separate.
with the beast, because I want to use that for next week's discussion. But Mr. Ingram said something that I wanted to touch on. I had JR created this image for those of you who can see it, because I wanted to pose the question to black men. What do you see when you look in the mirror? What do you see looking back at you? Do you see another black man, or do you see a beast? You can take it down, JR. And I think that's something that we need to consider, because the way in which we behave towards one another, the lack of tolerance that we have towards one another, the disrespect in the way in which we speak to one another, I think leads me to believe that we don't really respect one another.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that we have to have as a cornerstone, that respect to one another is important. You know, there's some men that may grow up in a household where they've never seen any example of respect. And there are two philosophies that I've heard with regard to respect. I've heard respect should be earned, and I've heard respect should be given. I come down on the side that respect should be given. I see respect like a handshake. You reach out to another brother and you offer him peace, brotherly love, and respect. 9 times out of 10, that brother will reach back out to you, shake your hand, and give you the respect. For those who do not give you respect back, if they're in this manosphere, maybe he still haven't found his way yet to love the image that he see in the mirror, to be able to love his brother, to be able to look at another black man and treat him with respect. So he may need to be taught. It might take time. But if he's a man that respect is not something that he gives, and he believes that he should rule by dominating, manipulating, looking to get over from one brother to the next, where survival of the fittest by as an individual is the code of life that he lives by, then he has to live by that code, and we have to shun a brother like that. But I think we need to really start looking on, you know, the power in any community is about unity. You can't have a community that's powerful with individuals separate one towards another. I remember when I was growing up in Harlem, I knew all my neighbors. I knew my neighbors across the street. I knew my neighbors downstairs. I knew my neighbors next door to me. My parents If I did something in the street when my mom came home, my mom was an RN. When she came home, my neighbors would be telling her everything that happened. Even if I didn't do it, but I was with the fellas that did it, my mother knew everything that happened. And I think we need to get back to a community where we respect one another, where one brother can say, yo, my man, I observed your son doing this. You need to have a talk with him. And that brother is not going to say, who the hell do you think you are? You can't tell me nothing about my kid, blase, 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 and want to throw the hands with the man that was just looking out for his child. I think we need to be able to say, you know what? I'm going to have a talk with my son. And I think we need to get back to those ways in terms of respecting one another, teaching our children to respect not only each other, but adults. And we need to start really showing love to one another, because if we show love one to another, then it'll be a lot easier for you to be trusted by another brother. Like at the moment, I live outside of the United States. And I tell you, I walk down the street and total strangers, I grew up in the US 50 years. Total strangers will say hello to me every day, men and women. And I live in a small town, 120,000 people. I like that small community. Coming from a big city like New York, this is a complete switch, but I like it. And one of the things that I like about it is that everybody know everybody, pretty much. I like the fact that I have the mayor's phone number and I can call him. I have the chief of police phone number and I can call him. I have the directors to most of the bilingual schools here and I can call them. And if I was to tell a parent something that I saw their child doing, they would take what I said with 100%, not a grain of salt, 100%. And these are people that I didn't grow up with. I've just met them in a few years since I've been here. But why is it that us, who we know each other generation upon generation upon generation, we look at each other like total strangers, and as people that we would have nothing to do with unless you could do something for me. If you could do something for me to put money in my pocket, we can talk. Other than that, I think we got to get past that.
What's going on, Mike Dub? Welcome to the show, brother. What you got for us?
Hey, Mike. You're on mute.
He's on mute.
I didn't hear you were breaking up.
Yes, can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I just want to bring it back to the whole emotion thing. Just because with my occupation, me being in the military, that a lot of times that me showing emotion is a bad thing because sometimes it get people killed. So how would you go about managing that? Because
you mean managing it in the military or managing it in men?
Managing in men and in family and just overall, pretty much having a balance.
Okay. Well, what I would say is, I mean, I don't know what part of the military in terms of what grade level you are in, but I think when a young man comes into the military, and he goes through basic training, and then when he's assigned to whatever group he will be working with, I definitely think that those who are in charge should really do a one-on-one sit down and get a map profile of that individual, his upbringing, whether he had a father in the home or not. And I think young men, especially at the age of 17, 18, 19, 20, they should be pushed. They should be challenged. They should go through emotional stressors to see where they break. In my early years, I used to work as an engineer. I was a pipe systems designer for nuclear installations. And one of the things you find out very early is when a plant is going online, they do what's called stress tests. You would have a 5% test, 10% test to see whether or not the seals and the wells on the piping system will hold, because you have uranium rods in a container that's going to burn up to 5,000 degrees. And the hot water and the steam that will come from that, if those wells are not to specification, they're going to rip. They're going to break.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things, we used to have a saying, pressure make a pipe bust, right? And I think that's something that if we look at, and this might not be something that you are familiar with, but as Black men, when we look at all African cultures, they used to have a time where a young man was coming into his as a going from a boy to a young man, and he would go through a trial to become a young man. That could be he may have to go out on a hunt alone. He may have to kill a deer or whatever, and he may do that for 3 or 4 days and come back. But prior to him going through that, he went through training so he would be prepared. And I think because we lack that type of masculine guidance as young men, I think when you go into the military as leaders in the military, I think you need to probe these young men and see where their balance is. Do they have a low threshold for emotional triggers, or do they have a high threshold for emotional triggers? If a man have a high threshold for emotional triggers, he's a man that you can be in the field with. A man that have a low threshold for emotional triggers, he needs training to build him up. And I think just training a man physically and putting a gun in his hand, he may have the ability, but he may not have the capability because things can break him down. And if he can break down emotionally, he becomes a liability to the platoon or to the team on whatever he's doing. So I think that's something that I'm not going to tell the military how to be military, because you guys are far better than me. But I think that men
I'll
need
tell
to
you
be
this though,
stressed. Yeah.
they,
Check
they're
it.
still trying to figure it out.
Okay. Okay. Well, if
They're
you
still
are a
trying to
voice,
figure
yeah, go ahead.
because
Sorry.
oh my bad, but the reason why I'm still trying to figure it out is because of the stressors in the military. There is a lot of men that commit suicide,
Right.
and three of my buddies committed suicide. So
Now, did you know what was going on with your buddy before that, before he reached that point?
no, and that's the problem. A lot of times we don't say nothing until it's too late.
Okay. Well, I think two things I would look at to create some kind of a man's clubhouse where men can sit around and be men and socialize together. That's one thing I would say, where men can air their points of view on anything, whether it be family, friends, father, mother, wherever. I mean, not with a professional in the room, just amongst each other. Because I think it is the man that sits to your right or the man that sits to your left that could potentially be more alert to be able to see a change in behavior than a professional who will meet with you once or twice a month. They're not going to see that unless you say or do something that is triggering. But if a person is somewhat of an introvert, they're not going to get those signals. Another thing that I would say, like I said, the stressor points can be done through games. It doesn't have to be in some violent way. There are ways to stress the mind through activity, and the activity can then shed light on something that might be going on, or a weakness that the brother may have or the gentleman might have. And subjects of discussion, you can pick subjects of discussion, and a triggering subject, a person will become silent. They don't want to talk about it. Immediately,
Do you think?
you could
Oh, my bad.
say again. Go ahead.
No, I'm getting like delayed feedback. So
Sure.
I thought you would, but do you think sometimes it could be a pride thing that they don't want to admit to themselves that they're having issues?
Well, yes, I do think it could be a pride thing, but pride and ego tend to go together with men.
Yeah.
However, if the man comes from a female centric environment, if he doesn't kind of like go off the cuff and express his emotions and yell and scream and get violent, he may tend to just go introvert and try to solve it on his own. And I think that's why different type of activities would be helpful, because those activities can identify trigger points. And he might not even know why some of the things he's going through, but he know he's having a problem, and he may
I've been
not know
there.
how to solve it.
I've been there.
And I think that as men, we have to really be proactive in trying to solve men issues, because in society there's really no avenues anymore available for men to be able to get uh, good services that can benefit us. More and more opportunities are being siphoned off to uplifting the female in the society under the guise that men have ruled for some period of time. But taking away the foundation of the men will only destroy the society for women at some later point. But as men, we can't wait around for that to happen, right? Because that will affect us too. That will affect our sons and our grandchildren in the future. So I think we're in a very pivotal point in time, 2022, to look to start to address the things that affects men in general. We need to be able to build economically. We need to be able to build men to be more masculine, and we need to build men that can deal with the emotional issues that it seems like many men have a problem coping with. You know,
Yeah.
ADHD and autism and different things. I think can be, when controlled by drugs, can cause you to become more weaker than stronger.
Yeah, I'm a product of that because I had ADHD. Actually, I still have ADHD,
Hmm.
and I took Adderall as a kid.
Right.
And
And
so
and now I've heard that Adderall and some of the other drugs were more deficient for
yep,
a stable mind and emotions than they actually help. They were just basically
yeah,
like, sedatives. And when you alter the mind from its natural operations and you sedate the mind over a long period of time, there will be deficiencies in the mind and how it resolves things, its thinking
yep,
process. And I think uh, learning, that's why I like critical thinking. When I used to teach, I used to always make sure I taught my students how to think critically, because critical thinking is finding the solution to something where the answer is not given, but the solution is within the problem. And that's a way of allowing people to have a more elastic mind, to be able to evaluate what you read. And just because it doesn't say this is the answer, you should be able to evaluate the things that are not part of the question and then hone in on the things that does provide solution to the question. So critical thinking is very important. So I definitely, if you're still in the military and you have influence among uh, commanders and people that have rank, I think you should maybe discuss something whereby young men recruits can go through some kind of game or challenges that can stress them at different levels: emotional stressors, physical stressors, anger stressors, all types of stressors, to see early on where they might have a weak point. And then if they have a weak point there, develop your strengths. I remember when I was in sales, we would take training and find out what we were good at and what we were weak at. But the things that we needed to develop was the things that we were weak at, because that will make us twice as strong and twice as successful. So, and that's what I would suggest on the surface.
yeah. Because that's what I'm trying to do now. Is that I'm not trying to get too involved into people's life, but I'm letting them know that I am an ear if they want to talk to. Because sometimes that's all you really need is an ear. It's someone
Well,
just to
well,
someone
I
just
would
to,
say, okay.
Can,
oh,
can
go
I
ahead,
can
go
I say
ahead.
something on this
Let me
topic? Okay. Can I say something on this topic? Okay.
Hold on, Amber.
One
Let's
moment.
let Lee respond to him real quick, and then we'll get to you.
What I would say is, if you want to develop a relationship where someone will open up, you can't do it over the phone.
That's true.
Interaction is necessary. It must be a situation where you can interact with that individual. That's the only way any bond of trust can be developed, where someone will open up to you. Mr.
Okay.
Ingram?
All right. Coming from a guy who's been through 2 police academies and spent 21 years in law enforcement, there's 2 types of people that come into this business. There's career professionals and there's crusaders.
Right.
Okay. Sometimes the background, the medical polygraph, the actual polygraph, when you load those direct lies, those relevant, irrelevant questions, And when you try to solicit information, many times you have some people that come into the profession that you may do a background on. If I do a background on somebody, what I want to find out is Mr. Lee talked about critical thinking. I want to find out who this person is beyond just the surface. If I run somebody's criminal, I will go on NCIC, I run their criminal background. This person might have a clean record, state, federal, clean background investigation. What I want to do is I want to talk to the neighbor. I want to find out, was he kicking the neighbor's dog when he's a kid? I want to find every woman that he's dated since the time he was in middle school. I want to find out if he has a police shrine in his basement where he's worshiping police work. The military and the police work, what happens many times is we mask a lot of mental issues. Some people have a thirst for power, and that is a dangerous man to put in the community. The problem is a lot of these guys are schooled because they have had most police work and military are generational. Cousins, fathers, uncles have been, and they've schooled them how to pass exams. They've schooled them how to pass the polygraph. They've schooled them how to pass the background. And you get certain individuals that should not be in the military, because if you have a problem before you go into the military is just going to amplify that. Now you have made a person with a mental health issue a dangerous person with a mental health issue. Because even to the point where training, I just got out August 1st, all of our training is active shooter, stopping a threat, stopping terrorists, headshots, building entry, attack and move, dynamics, all these things. But I'm not going to get too much into the detail about those things. Is that we got to understand that the military, the police, some people should not be in these things. They don't have the mental health or capacity to be out here. And you don't want to make somebody that has an issue. You have to solve those issues. And like I said, the worst thing you could do to somebody that has an issue is give them better training and power. So in terms of developing discipline, I'm big into things like intermittent fasting and so on and so forth, because a lot of what happens to our boys is you grow up, we have a 75% single parent home. So you don't have those men instilling those discipline. And even when I coach basketball, sometimes I might have practice at 6 o'clock in the morning just to see who can come. We might be running hills for a couple of weeks. You know, those big hills that Walter Payton used to run, just to see what people are made of. You know what I mean? See who quits.
Absolutely.
Because I want to find out how much committed you are and how dedicated you are. But it's none of these things mask problems. You have to get the mental health counseling, and you have to get maybe a man that has the discipline to help you out with leadership in some type of training, or even having conversations with people to help. Because the worst thing that we do in this country is we take a lot of people that have issues and put them in important positions, and then you end up with explosions and ticking time bombs. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's a definite aspect to it. But I think what Mike was trying to get at was that he's losing friends and colleagues because they are cracking under the stress.
Mm-hmm.
They're unable to, how can I say, complete their course. And whatever between what they're doing in the military and what's going on in their home life, for whatever those two things mixed together, it seems like they've come to a point in their life that they're unable to manage the situation any longer. And their solution is to end themselves. So what is causing men to think or believe that I would be a better contributor to society if I wasn't here?
Because what happens is in the military and police work, and you see it a lot of times with retired cops, many of them end themselves. They're usually dead a couple of years afterwards. I think the average lifespan is like 59 and a half because of all the traumatic that they have to do. So what happens when you're in those professions, they become your identity if you're not careful. So if I'm doing FTO with a particular kid, the first thing I say is this: keep your friends, keep in touch with the community, have relationships beyond the job. The job should never be your identity. It's a career. And what happens many times is it's so structured. All their friends, everybody, when you take them out of that environment, and now they have to deal with the wife at home, they have to deal with the kids, they have to deal with community, and they deal with the disappointment. And then unlike the military that's so structured, everything is structured from the time you eat, how you move, roll calls and everything. You take that structure away from them, and they're out here in this Serengeti. It's very stressful, and they haven't learned coping mechanisms. And I think that's when it explodes, you know?
And that's what I was saying about having an elastic mind. You have to be able to switch between environments and not get constrained by one environment that you favor, and then get into the world again and you lose it because that structure, you're so accustomed to having that structure, and in society, everyone move in a way in which they want to move. Go ahead, Ricky. 1 second, Mike.
Go ahead, Ricky.
Yeah. I can. This kind of hits home to me because personally, this is where I was years ago. You know what I mean? Raised by, a dominant, a family with a man that really wasn't present, but the female was my mother was the dominant power in our family, right? Mm-hmm. On top of that is what you have to realize first thing, Mike, and to all the men, that your thought structure is incorrect, right? The way we think about the relationships and how a family is supposed to be ran is incorrect, right? We're so ingrained from the media to your family, to the women in your family, to the women you work with, to policy, right? That as we see where the power is looking to be pushed, everything's females are reactionary, right? They're reactionary. So what happens, Mike, when stuff don't go on in your mind that you can't wrap around? Instead of taking a moment and thinking, you react, right? And no matter what nobody keeps saying, right? As a man, and no matter what we break it down to, we still mammals, we still animals. A man's his nature is to attack.
And either that or we cope, and usually the coping mechanism is the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we got to first realize it all starts up here. It doesn't matter how many people you see change your environment until you change this. Mm-hmm. I say it all the time. Y'all everything we taught was a lie. Everything we was taught is a lie. They teaching our children, they teaching the generations coming behind us that nature does not exist, that your nature does not exist. Men ain't men and women ain't women. Pump some testosterone in her, she can compete with man. Oh, go ahead and get him testosterone level, share his testosterone levels, just shoot him over estrogen. He's a woman. He's a woman.
A woman, right.
This what I'm telling y'all is bigger than this. When there's no man, who is there to war against? Who is there to defend your people? We got to start thinking differently as men. Like Mr. Lee say, you don't ask to lead, you lead. You don't ask to lead, you lead. And if in your heart and in your actions and in your words, you see on a day-to-day basis that you're doing the right thing by your family, you're leading, and a woman doesn't want to get on your program, what is there to talk about? Mm-hmm. Right?
Couldn't have said it better.
I absolutely agree, brother.
Y'all want to get final points, y'all. Final points.
Mr. You want me to go first or Mr. Lee? He's still.
I'll speak last.
I think there's a lot to learn. I appreciate J.R. Lee, brother Mike, brother Ricky. Let me tell you, it's very critical, I think, to have men in this space have these mature conversations. Because for me, I'm always learning. constantly learning. That's one of the issues that we've had in our community. We have to have strong leadership, as go the men, as go the community. That's just the way it is. And I don't care what type of social programming or what the government is selling. The men, as go the men and boys, go the community. And that's what we have to figure out. There's no other way around it. And that's what I'm parting with. But I think it's more men, more masculine men need to have these conversations. And like we all talk to each other. There's no personal attacks. There's no feminine energy. There's none of that garbage. So I salute you, gentlemen. I appreciate you guys having me here. And you guys take care.
Thank you.
too. What's going on, E? I've been trying to get you back for the longest, brother.
Yeah, man. I was having some Wi-Fi issues. I was gonna say, great talk, but a lot of times what we have from the OGs, from the older guys, is a lot of, what we need to do and how we need it, you know what I'm saying? But instead of having solutions, and one of the solutions I always have for us is understanding that color black is a label, and it's a really detrimental label that we're keeping going as a tradition. From colored people to black people to all these misnomers to keep us from our nationality, to keep us from reparations. And so in order to get reparations, we have to be ourselves, and we have to know who we are first. And most men won't look into their names, won't look into, their ancestry. And that's one of the things that we have to do as men is find out, about great-grandpa, great-great-great-grandpa. You get what I'm saying? In order to move forward, we got to know where we came from. We got to know our history first.
Well, I would say this. I think there have been a lot of conversations and there have been a lot of research about our history. And I think some of us know our history, those of who have did some search.
And that's the problem.
But let me finish. The thing is that these are individual searches to find tracing your link. I think one of the things we need to look at this point is that we as a people in America, we are renewed. If you want to trace your lineage to wherever, that's fine. But I think we need to stand on who we are here and now. And whatever that name that we will call ourselves when we get to the point where through an institutional representation that we decide this is who we are and this is who we're going to be represented as, that day will come in time. But between now and then, we have to build in a staircase level process to reach the point of which where we can make that change and decide who are we going to call ourselves and what will we be represented as, because we can't go backwards. And I think the individual conversations about going backwards detracts from the bigger picture of moving forward. We need everybody taking a step in the forward direction as opposed to taking a step in the backward direction.
Without foundation.
And I know that some people will say, if you don't know your past, you can't know your future. I will tell you this about,
you're doomed to repeat it.
We know the history of America. Do we not?
No, we don't. A lot of times people think they came over here on boats.
Okay. That's a conversation I would say for a different show, and maybe we can have that show one day. But what I would say at this point right now, we're all here. What are we going to do about the men, women, and children that are here now? And how do we go forward as one united people? That's the conversation I want to have. 2022 and beyond, not 2021 and behind. I'm looking to go forward, not backwards. And if you want to have that conversation on how we go forward, that's great. If you want to have the conversation about individual ancestry and how it came here, we could have that discussion too. I mean, that's a conversation that other intellectuals have participating in the past, and it's a valid conversation to have. But I think there's more pressing things that we need to focus on, that particular line of conversation would either add little or create confusion. And one thing we don't need going forward as a community and as black men, we don't need things that will separate us. We need things that will bring us more together. So we need to find the things that we can agree on at present and then
Okay,
go forward there. That's what
I
I'm
get what
looking
you're
at.
saying. So if we can
Sure.
agree that we are all earthlings, right? That we're all on Earth, and that this
Well,
planet.
that's a different agreement because that's all humans. I'm talking about black Americans.
So we are more
Hey,
alike than we are different, is what I'm saying.
Hold on,
can
hold
I
on, Mike.
intervene
No,
real
but I'm
quick?
talking about one
Hold on,
moment. I'm
Mike. I
talking
want to get
about
to Little
black.
first, and I come back.
One second, Mike. I'm talking about black Americans. We are the people that are suffering most in this country. We're the people that lack the most in this country. And black men in particularly don't have the power to uh, craft the environment and the community that we know that would add value and build with our wives and our children and going forth in the subsequent generations in the future. Those are the things that I want to focus on. And with regard to humans, that's a conversation too. But I don't want to talk about humans.
I'm not
I
saying
want to talk
I'm saying
about
that.
Black Americans. I don't want to talk about Earthlings. I don't. That's everybody. I
I'm
don't want
saying
to
we
talk
can
about
all
everybody.
agree on something, right? On one
Right,
thing
but
that we are all
I
humans.
need it
Yes.
to be specific, not
So
so
humans
general
are
and
broken
broad.
down into families, not colors. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay,
In the
go ahead,
human
finish up.
family, you calling yourself a color means you are taking yourself out of the human family. Go ahead, Mike. My fault.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay,
He said, go ahead, Mike.
sure. Unmute, Mike.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just getting I guess I'm in a bad area. I'm getting a lot of delay, but I just want to say I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna get off. I got some things to take care of.
Okay. All
Appreciate
right,
it.
Mike. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
All right.
All right, man.
Rilla, what's going on, brother? You want to join in on this discussion?
Man, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lee. My goodness, I was looking forward to this week. I'm still digesting last week. I have not completed my homework assignment, sir, from last week. And I was in and out because I was weaving. You know what's crazy? I was weaving in and out the city. I was on the north side, and I'm coming down 94. I'm looking at the skyline of my city, and you were speaking on some heavy things, sir. And I was just like, man, you know, John Baptiste DuSable founded this city, right? He discovered this city, founded this city, and listening to you speak and about the possibilities of what could happen if black men decided they wanted to lead. What's the homework assignment for this week? That was the question that I had for you. And then I did want to hear Eric. I kind of wanted to hear you, or Esso, I kind of wanted to hear you get to the bigger point, because I think a lot of times in these discussions, you know, to be honest, we get to a point where we major on minor. I believe words are important.
Absolutely.
And I try not to do the semantics, but you know, the bigger picture and what we need to focus on as black men leading. And then here we are at a table full of solutions. I'll be honest with you, bro. The last thing I'm worried about is if this group of people want to label themselves ADOS, if this group of people want to go FBA, if this people want to say they black, non-indigenous, indigenous, white, brown, whatever they want to label themselves. All I want to know is, can we agree on the things that we can agree on and move forward? So I did want to hear you get to the bigger point so we can get to solutions. But Mr. Lee, man, thank you, sir. Not man, but sir, thank you. Man, for everything that you contribute into this platform and for the contribution that you're making. But I do need to know, what's this week's homework assignment?
Well, this homework assignment, the black man may establish the first ethical behavior going forward. And that ethical behavior will be that I will no longer sleep with another man's wife. I think that's something that we as Black men need to make sure is a cornerstone. That's the one thing that can destroy family. And if we are able to do that, it can build and keep families together. No matter the temptation by the woman, whether she's thick, whether she's just the way you like it, whether she's complaining about how she's being mistreated by her current relationship, no. You do not sleep with another man's wife, period.
You never
It's
heard
not
of bucks?
negotiable. Say again?
You never heard of cucks? It's pretty much a term for well, a lot of times they'll ask for a guy to hit their wife. It's a whole like.
That's prevalent in our community.
Well, yeah, I mean they usually use what they call black bulls.
No. What I'm asking you is, that's prevalent in our community.
Yeah, they usually use black bulls. That's what they
Who is
call
they? Who is they?
white women, white couples. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I think that's the question that he's asking when he says that prevalent in our community.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. They use black men as far as with the white women. A lot of times.
Well, this conversation that I would like to keep it is about the Black community, and I'm talking about Black men not sleeping with other Black men's wives. What I'm trying to see really is, what is the Black manosphere really all about? Are we about men that want to make change, or we just want to talk?
And in order to change things, what would not sleeping with another man's wife do? I mean, you think she's not going to go out and do it with somebody else?
I'm not concerned about what the woman will do.
Right.
This homework is not about women. This conversation is not about women.
Yeah, he was talking
This
about
conversation
the men.
this is about leadership, and leadership comes from the man.
And as a man,
right,
you do realize
yes,
that if you don't do it, somebody else will.
Then let somebody else do it.
But it won't be you.
That's facts.
But it won't be you.
Then let somebody else do it.
E, what we doing, bro?
Right. Stop sleeping and stop.
I'm trying to figure out what's the solution.
Hold on, E.
No, Ricky. Hey, just pause real quick, bro. Just breathe real quick. JR, this is important because I really want to hear what E is saying, because I think what Mr. Lee is getting at, and then even what I'm curious about is, bro, we in a space where we creating solutions now. Mr. Lee just said something that went over your head, and to be honest with you, I'm really even more curious that we're sitting on stage with an elder, and you almost talking to the elder like he your equal. So I'm curious, like, what we trying to get at, like, ultimately, what's the solution? And I'm not saying you can't voice your opinion, or you can't say what. I'm not trying to censor you. I'm not shutting nothing what you're saying down, bro. I literally burned the trail to get home to be able to have this conversation with Mr. Lee, just to give him my support, my salute, find out what the homework assignment is. But I was listening to Mr. Brother Ingram, which, you know, I think is a super dope brother. I think all you brothers are dope, but they're, you know, I know you're younger than everybody here on the platform. So I'm just curious, you know, two things. Because it sounds like you're coming to the table with a solution. So I want to know what that solution is, number one. Number two, where do we have evidence of this working for you?
So with the foundation and something concrete, and not, you know, oh, we'll get to that later. If we start with the foundation, right? Because when I say something is brushed off and it's, oh, you know what, well, that's a different conversation. That's some other time. You get what I'm saying? We can't
What
even
do you mean
worry
when you
about
say the foundation?
What I'm saying is the foundation, meaning where we start from, the point where we all have to start from.
Okay, and then tell us what that is in your mind.
In my mind, we have to start as understanding that we are human beings first.
But I don't think that's a conversation to have, because we all know that already.
No, we don't. That's what I'm saying. Once you
Hey,
start
hey,
calling
hey,
yourself
Okay,
a
well,
crayon, a
if
color,
you're not if you're not at the level where you already know that, this conversation might be above your level of
so we
competency.
keep calling them black people, and you're saying that we're not at that level. We're above that, which is a lower
Okay,
level. If you're putting yourself at a lower level,
that level of conversation is not necessary for this discussion.
for this discussion, we're talking about,
Yes.
are we going back to what? Being wives? Is that what you're saying? So, okay,
Were
if you're carrying
you a
on,
wife? Were you a
no,
wife?
if
Oh,
you are
okay.
carrying on another man's name, how about that? You can keep carrying on another man's name, another man's legacy for however long you want to do it. That doesn't mean that's your name as a man. So if our women can't respect us, we can't look at what? Who are they respecting? Who are they respecting? The men with these names.
You
These
can make up a
men
name whenever you
who
want.
own these corporations.
You can
Who,
make up a name whenever you want. Let's not see, we're getting distracted by simplicity. That is simplicity. A name, we can make up a name whenever we want. Jesse Jackson made up a name. Come on, man. Let's not get distracted by this ignorant, simplistic thinking. I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. We need to find the things that works for us now that we could come together on the things that we could agree on most. The incidentals that we disagree on, we can deal with that later. You never had a college homework? You did your 20-page essay first, and then you did the 1-page report after. Let's get the 20-page essay done. Then we could deal with the 1-page report. How about that?
I would do it backwards. The one
And
page you can knock out
yes,
quick.
and
The
that's
20
why you would
page
not finish.
you're gonna need
That's
more research.
why the 20-page report that carries 60% of your grade, that's where you would find yourself in falter, because you would do the one that carry 1% of your grade or 2% of your grade first. See, that's another thing I was talking about earlier. A man that knows how to make decisive decisions. That means he has to be able to analyze the situation around him and choose what's the best decision, not only for himself, but for his family. If you think doing the simple thing first is the best way to go about solving our mountainous problems that lies before us, you're mistaken. Because while we're figuring out how to solve the simple things, you know what our enemies are doing? They're setting up roadblocks in the bigger stuff to make sure we never get there. That's what they're doing.
Every journey starts with a single step.
Yes, but are you going up the mountain, or are you going to walk around it, round and
Even
round
the
and round? What are you
mountain,
going to do?
whether it's a mountain, whether it's anything, it
I
starts with a single
understand.
step.
But what's your direction? That's my question.
Right. And
Is it up or
straight.
is it around?
We
Is
need
it
to go
up
straight.
or is it around? You said a
Straight.
mountain. You don't go straight on a mountain. You go up a mountain.
Go up.
I've climbed a mountain.
Straight up. Right?
Okay, up.
Right.
And that's what I'm talking about.
And
I'm not talking
there's
about going
also a
around the
way to walk
mountain.
around and around and around till you get to the top. Right. So you're saying we should need to go straight up. That's what you're saying.
Straight up. That's what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying. And
Okay.
not sleeping with another man's wife when they're
Not sleeping with another
who's
man's
getting
wife.
married nowadays.
Doesn't matter. As long as you know
You know what I
she's
mean?
a
So
married woman,
that's easy.
hear me out. Hear me out. As long as you know she's a married woman, you don't sleep with her. If she tell you she got a boyfriend, you don't sleep with her. How about that? If she's in a committed relationship, whether it's on paper or they live together without a paper, you don't sleep with her. How about that? Regardless of what she's going to do. If she want to go find a dog or a horse to sleep with, that's on her. If no black man will give her the pleasure that she wants, that a man that is worthy, because not every woman will sleep with every man. Some women want men that are accomplished. I'm talking to men in this space that are accomplished, men that are looking to build.
We got to stop relegating ourselves to our
I appreciate you, brother.
You know what I'm saying? It's
Thank
more
you.
than just your penis. You know what I mean? But
Well, let's start there. Well, let's start there. That seems to be something that
Being a
black
man
Hey,
is
men
more
I got it.
that black men don't have rule over. Most black men can't rule their penis. So why don't we start there?
Yo,
That's why I
hey,
chose that challenge.
I gotta know, bro. What we doing, fam? What type of conversation is we supposed to be having right now? Are you coming to okay, so let me ask you this. What are your suggestions to get us from point A to point B? And tell us those suggestions that you have implemented where we see progress, and we could point to the direction and say, that brother's spot on. Let's move, let's all galvanize and move in that direction. Not theoretical, not what you've read, not what you feel. Because listen, I don't know it all. I'm here to learn. That's why that's why I'm here. So help me out, bro, because I'm confused right now. Help me out.
So you can look at, a lot of people can look in their own community, and I don't know if in your community you have tobacco stores popping up, and you see who they're run by. Already in the community, you'll see Chinese food places. We know
Those
who
men
they're
don't
run
sleep
by.
with each other's wives.
Right. So what I'm saying is, as far as for solutions go, you know, your sexual, whatever you do sexually, that's up to you, right?
No,
No,
But as
we're
far as
talking
for the
about
community as a whole,
we're
we're talking
talking
about
about
standards.
setting a standard for black people, changing the perception of black men.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
right.
You want to change the behavior of women,
E,
you set standards to black men. That's how you do that.
let me ask you this, E. Are you coming to this conversation in good faith to actually contribute something to substance, or are you looking to respond just to be right?
No,
Be
I'm
honest,
actually
bro.
trying to contribute.
Okay,
It's getting
so
shot
tell us.
down, yeah, but
No, nobody's shooting you down because we hearing you out. Now you getting pushback because again, we get into these spaces and we majoring on minor. So from your perspective, you're like, okay, don't call yourself black. Okay, well, okay, so we don't call ourselves black anymore. Cool. We're humans. Okay. And our nationality, for the most part, I'm looking at the gentleman on the panel, all 5 of us are American. Okay, cool. Now what?
so any paperwork, right, that you see that's given to you, right, is that once you know who you are, and you can call yourself whatever you want, like you said, right? Once we have an established identity, a nationality that
We
we
don't have that type of
understand what it
time.
is. I'm sorry, what you say?
Hold on, brother. Just go ahead and let him finish real quick.
I am, but I'm just
I'm
saying
just
we
trying to see
don't.
where it's going right quick.
I
Go
got
ahead.
you, bro. Go ahead, Cook.
Go ahead.
Man.
Bring
We
us
just don't
home,
have that
E.
type of time.
All right, yeah, my fault. I'm gonna hurry up. All right, so look, once you know, okay, that this paperwork, what you sign, everything you sign, anything you sign, you are going to be contractually bound to. Once we know the terms of agreement, then we can move forward. What I'm trying to say is, we can't just keep clicking, yes, I read it, yes, I understand the terms, and just keep going forward like we've been doing. Nobody's reading any of the terms anymore. That's what I'm saying. Nobody knows what they're signing anymore. And it's to the point where you are going forward and just saying, oh, all right, well, now that we going forward, let's not sleep with this person, or let's, control our, you know what I'm saying, penises. Okay, that's cool. Now nobody's having sex. All right, cool. Nobody has sex. Nobody having sex with anybody unless they're your wife, right? Unless it's your wife.
Oh man. Wow.
So then what? What's you know what I mean?
We
Like,
got you, E.
if you coming with me, then what's the solution after that?
We got you.
You coming at me talk about, oh, we changed to American. America is 2 continents. That's what I'm saying. If we understand what these words mean and what we are saying that we are, and understand that it's more to it than just black and white.
I got you, E.
Right.
I know JR got to move on. I'm gonna say this respectfully to you, E. I'm gonna say this respectfully, and I'll probably catch you on the 12-hour stream tonight, bro. All right, man. What Mr. Lee said, and I ain't trying to be funny, man, but the man is saying actionable items in 2022. We gotta move, man. The stuff you talking about right now, bro, that's 2000. That's like 2002. That's Malachi York stuff you talking about right now, man. We so far behind, man, and competition is kicking our tail. You're right. I can go in my hood and see the Arab, or if I'm in Detroit, I can see the Chaldean, or I can go to Chinatown right now. They kicking out, man. I ain't got time for this, bro. I love you. I love your perspective, bro. I do. Most times you be on point. On this one, I just respectfully disagree, and ain't nobody cutting you off, man. I just really wanted to hear you, and I think when you go back and watch this segment, bro, you're gonna see that the conversation shifted a number of times, and in your mind, it may have made sense, but it did not translate well today, bro.
Can I say something?
I appreciate you calling me.
Can I say something?
Love, E.
You want to say something to E?
Yeah, I mean, if he right. So yeah, people don't read. Yeah, nomenclatures and political standings are people, but what difference does it make when it's part of a system that we don't run? What you talking about? Mr. Lee done talked for the last times we done seen him on here talking about establishing a system so we can push back and change the system or develop one of our own. And this is what you get out of it? This is what you get out of it. He telling you what the actionable items. What's the easiest way that you can show respect for your brother? By not sleeping with his woman. Off top. You see a brother at the gas station you don't know, you walk up, hey bro, how your day going? What's happening with you? Right? Not looking at him because he got some clean shoes, or looking at him like you ready to jump him or something to happen. You approach him like a brother, off top. And this is what you got out of it? We got to separate the tares from the wheat. I keep telling y'all, everybody not gonna make it.
Word.
Y'all got to acknowledge it's a war first. I said this on my live the other night. Everybody knows systematic racism exists, but y'all refuse to recognize that it is a system. Rich or old, white or black, everybody got to play in it. It's a system. He
And the
giving
system.
actionable. I'm sorry, Mr. Lee. I apologize.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
He giving y'all a simple, actionable item that can build the unity within your immediate circle, your immediate neighborhood, and this is what you got out of it. Mr. Lee, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Seriously, thank you.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, Mr. Lee. Go ahead and close this out. I know you wanted to get final thoughts. Somebody asked, I guess you're supposed to make a second point or something that you didn't make. I seen that in the chat. I'm not sure if you even remember it at this point, but
I don't remember it.
Yeah, that's okay. But go ahead and close this out.
Well, I would say this. Change is never something that is accepted. It's always met with resistance. And certain behavior is very hard to change. That's why I said last week, show me a man's habit and I can tell you who he is. Because the first thing we have to be able to do is change our behavior. And before we can change our behavior, we have to change our mind. And in changing our mind, we have to establish a code of conduct that will direct our behavior. Now, I'm sure those who study history may know of Hammurabi and his laws. That changed society world over, just from one country. Now, there are many things that I could have suggested today, but I know the one main thing that affects day-to-day life, and one of the things that we talk about a lot in this manosphere, is sex and women. And one of the things that we find difficult to control is women. You can't control a woman. Stop trying. Control you, and the woman will submit herself to you. If we as Black men respect other Black men as we respect ourselves, and realize that the women that these men have is their women, and we have no right to take another man's woman, then we won't sleep with her. And if we won't sleep with her, the only type of men she will be able to sleep with is men without standards. We have to become a new breed of man, a new breed of black men, that our reputation will go ahead of us and people will know these black men don't walk that way anymore. We walk different. And we will build a new black community. We will not renovate the old black community. And those who will be part of the new black community will roll like we roll. And the women that want to be a part of us, they will come with us and they will clearly submit because they recognize our leadership, because leaders lead.
Well, there you have it. We appreciate you guys for tuning in to Sage Talk with Lee. We got another bang in the books. If you haven't liked that button, hit that like button already. Go ahead and hit it right now.
Thank you very much,
gentlemen,
guys.
Man. Thank you, Ricky, for stopping in, man, showing support. Appreciate you, Rilla. Thank you, too. We out, y'all. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, they could not touch that.
It's too early, but that's okay. My gym workout was phenomenal. Before I went home, I decided to stop over at my mother's house. I haven't seen my mother in 2 months. I know she's going to be very surprised to see me. I can't wait. What the? I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The first thing I noticed was this person's skin. What is going on? Uncomplicated, untreated skin? Who is this guy? I had to take a step back, but then I realized it was my brother. But look at his skin. Have you guys ever seen anything like that? I had to take a closer look and figure out what was going on. Best believe I crept up on him. Peep this. I'm still looking at his skin, trying to figure out, how did we get here? I could do nothing but shake my head. He could definitely use my help. I had to get to the bottom of this. He definitely needed some game about his skin. I'm just staring at it, like looking at it. Come on, bro. I knew what to do. I had to reach in my bag and get that Tiege Hanley. Uncomplicated skincare for men. Bro, this is why I'm excited to have Tiege Hanley as a sponsor of today's video. They have helped me start and maintain my skincare routine by making the entire process uncomplicated. Honestly, it's the best skincare system for guys like you and me. I recommend you start with their level 1 system, which comes with all the basics. A daily face wash to get rid of the dirt and the grime on your skin, a 2 times per week exfoliating scrub to get rid of the dead skin cells, an AM moisturizer with SPF 20 because you should always be protecting your skin from the sun, and a PM moisturizer to help your skin stay hydrated and healthy throughout the night. My brother was so excited. My favorite part about Tiege Hanley is that every box comes with an instruction card that tells you when to use each product, how much to use, and in what order. They really make the process of achieving and maintaining amazing skin easy. Shout out to Tiege Hanley. And because Tiege Hanley is sponsoring today's video, they're offering my viewers a great deal. Just click the first link in the description, and not only will you get Tiege Hanley for the best possible price, but they'll also give you a free gift with your first box. Click that link and get started today for just $30. Feel the Tiege. Let the Tiege force be with you. Shout out to that sponsor, Tiege Hanley. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Hit that like button on your way out. Sage Talk with Mr. Lee. It's another banger, y'all. We out. Hit that like button, y'all.